Before we begin, subscribe for more chilling stories and tell me which city you're watching from. I'd love to know. The cold air of Oak Haven's abandoned chapel, thick with the scent of mold and despair, constricted Sarah's throat. Dust motes danced in the pale moonlight that filtered through shattered windows, weakly illuminating fragments of a cobwebbed, draped altar. In the center of the nave, upon a heap of soiled cloths, lay a macabre figure. It was not a person, but a grotesque, almost scarecrow-like effigy, crafted from gnarled twigs, tattered rags, and the bleached skull of an animal. Its eyes, fashioned from rusty buttons, seemed to fixate on her with an ancient, malevolent intelligence. But the most disturbing detail was the necklace. A gruesome strand made of human teeth, horrifyingly familiar. It was identical to one she had glimpsed in an old photograph of her father, a forbidden relic he had meticulously hidden deep within a forgotten drawer. The cloying scent of rot and something else, something sickeningly sweet and metallic, hung heavy in the air, filling her lungs with a wave of profound nausea. Sarah stumbled backward, her lantern trembling violently in her shaking hands, her heart hammering uncontrollably. The chapel, which she had naively hoped would be merely another picturesque ruin, had instead transformed into a terrifying portal to an unspeakable horror. A chilling window into a secret her father had deliberately taken to his grave. Her mind, previously consumed by a healthy curiosity regarding her family's history, was now utterly consumed by an all-encompassing, icy dread. This horrifying place was a profound mistake. She should never have come to Oak Haven. The small, isolated town of Oak Haven, nestled precariously in the heavily wooded hills north of Sleepy Hollow, New York, was more a lingering ghost than a tangible place. Its once vibrant houses, now skeletal husks, stood in various states of decay, their empty windows like soulless eyes staring blankly at the encroaching forest. Sarah had traveled here seeking answers about her father, Thomas, a man of profound silences who had spent his final years shrouded in a pervasive, melancholic quiet. After his passing, Sarah unearthed an antique box carefully hidden in the dusty attic, brimming with brittle, yellowed letters and old newspaper clippings from Oak Haven, a place he had rarely, if ever, mentioned. The letters spoke in vague, unsettling terms of a forest pact and necessary offerings, terms that left her with a deep, unsettling sense of apprehension. Determined to truly understand her father and unravel the bewildering mysteries of his past, Sarah embarked on the journey to Oak Haven. Upon her arrival, the town was precisely as depicted in the faded old photographs, utterly deserted, covered in a thick blanket of moss and saturated with forgotten memories. Her father's house, a small weathered wooden structure perched precariously at the very edge of the vast ancient forest, seemed to be the only building that had somewhat resisted the relentless march of time, though it too was in an advanced state of disrepair. She dedicated her initial days to the laborious task of cleaning and repairing what she could, desperately attempting to breathe a semblance of life back into the desolate place. The nights, however, were starkly different. Oak Haven's silence was profound and heavy, punctuated only by the ominous rustle of leaves and the distant, mournful howl of unseen wild dogs. Sarah felt an unnerving sensation of being perpetually watched, a feeling that relentlessly denied her the solace of deep sleep. She frequently found herself peering through the windows, utterly convinced she had glimpsed a slender, elusive shadow lurking between the towering trees. She diligently attributed these fleeting sightings to simple exhaustion and an overactive imagination, products of her profound isolation. Yet one particular evening, as she sat on the porch, engrossed in one of her father's cryptic letters, she distinctly heard a sound. It was a soft, almost imperceptible whisper emanating from the depths of the forest, a low, guttural murmur that seemed to eerily call her name. She squinted into the encroaching darkness, but saw nothing conclusive. The wind swayed the branches overhead, and she again tried to rationalize the sound as merely the natural movement of the air. But the whisper persisted, low and insistent, weaving an insidious spell of terror around her heart. She retreated indoors, hastily locking the door, but the unsettling sound seemed to have permeated the very walls of the house, now echoing disturbingly within her own mind. She attempted to calm her racing pulse, but the forest, once a picturesque backdrop to her father's life, now loomed as a vast repository of dark, unspeakable secrets, a thick, impenetrable veil that concealed a terrible, ancient truth. With each passing day spent in Oak Haven, Sarah's initial curiosity became increasingly entangled with a growing, palpable dread. She knew with an unsettling certainty that she was drawing closer to something profound, a revelation that possessed the power to irrevocably alter her perception of her father and, indeed, the entire world around her. This escalating dread culminated in the discovery of the macabre scarecrow in the abandoned chapel, its button eyes and necklace of human teeth chilling her to the core. The cloying scent of rot and something sickeningly sweet hung heavy in the air, filling her lungs with a wave of profound nausea. That grotesque scarecrow served as the chilling final proof that her burgeoning fears were terrifyingly real, and that she had unwittingly trespassed onto sacred, perilous ground. The necklace of human teeth, undeniably identical to the one in her father's old photograph, was the crucial key to unlocking a disturbing past she was now irrevocably destined to unearth. The horrifying image of the scarecrow in the chapel was indelibly seared into Sarah's mind. She spent the entire night wide awake, sleep proving to be an unattainable luxury. The silence of Oak Haven, a heavy blanket amplifying every creak and whisper. The sun eventually emerged, but brought no relief from the horror she had endured. Determined to unravel the unsettling mystery, Sarah revisited the town's decaying ruins. She found an ancient, crumbling library, its shelves filled with brittle, dust-covered books and yellowed papers. Deep within a forgotten cabinet, she discovered a series of leather-bound diaries by a resident named Abigail, dating back to the late 19th century. The diaries detailed a chilling local legend, an ethereal entity of the forest known as the Whispering One. The legend spoke of an ancient, malevolent creature dwelling in the forest depths, feeding on secrets and fears. It manifested through insidious whispers, terrifying illusions, and an overwhelming sense of dread, manipulating minds, inciting rituals, and demanding gruesome offerings to appease its insatiable hunger. The Whispering One's objective was to maintain Oak Haven's isolation, transforming it into a horrifying captivity. Abigail described the Forest Pact, an ancient agreement twisted into servitude, where settlers made offerings, including human teeth and bones, to appease the creature. The necklace of teeth, Sarah realized, was one such horrifying offering. Abigail's diary concluded with a note of despair, referencing her own father, a guardian of the pact, who had succumbed to the Whispering One's influence, transforming into one of its grotesque watchers, shadowy figures ensuring no one broke the pact. Sarah felt profound nausea. That scarecrow was an offering, and her father's necklace was undeniable proof of his horrifying involvement. Her father, she now understood, was not merely a former resident. He was a guardian, or worse, one of the Whispering One's tormented watchers. His house, the last dwelling before the forest line, was the perfect vantage point. The diary unveiled a horrifying truth. Her father had been silent not by nature, but by the burden of a terrible secret trying to shield her. But by returning, she had broken the pact, and the Whispering One was aware of her presence. The scarecrow, the scent of decay, the whispers, everything converged into one terrifying image. She was the new prey, the next target of the entity that had enslaved Oakhaven for centuries. The morning light could no longer hide the profound darkness that enveloped the town, permeating every stone, every ancient tree, every breath she took. Oakhaven was not just abandoned. It was a grim monument to madness and fear, where human life was grotesque currency for an ancient terror. Sarah unknowingly had become part of this terrible legacy. The terror that now overwhelmed Sarah was immense, yet her determination to uncover the truth and escape Oakhaven propelled her. She closed Abigail's diary, needing to leave this accursed place fast. With each minute she felt the forest closing in, the Whispering One tightening its noose. She rushed back to her father's house, her heart pounding. The cabin, once a symbol of hope, now felt like a trap. The sun was setting and night would bring new terror. She packed her belongings frantically, pausing at every noise. She needed her car, but the fear of stepping outside was paralyzing. As she folded a shirt, a soft whisper from outside the window froze her. It was deeper, more articulated than wind, an ancient language scratching at her mind. She peered out through the curtain. A slender figure stood motionless near the tree line, observing the house. One of the Whispering One's watchers. Sarah recoiled, trembling. She had been seen. She locked the door but knew it was futile. Her cell phone had no signal. The town was a dead zone. Despair consumed her. She felt the Whispering One's presence. Intense cold, ancient malice, insatiable hunger. Suddenly, she heard slow, dragging footsteps on the veranda, approaching the front door, then stopping. Sarah held her breath, feeling the presence so close. A soft hiss, as if struggling to breathe. Then a voice. Not the rough voice of the watcher, but an ancient, raspy sound like dry leaves. It whispered her name, Sarah, drawing out the vowels, savoring the sound. The pervasive stench of damp earth and putrefaction invaded the house from beneath the door. The Whispering One. It was undeniably there. The chilling whisper of the Whispering One permeated the door, directly penetrating Sarah's mind with an icy coldness that instantly paralyzed her. It was a grotesque symphony of unsettling forest sounds, meticulously interwoven into a horrifying chorus articulating her name. The pervasive stench of decomposition in damp soil intensified, filling her lungs with profound nausea. She recoiled from the door, her back pressed against the opposite wall, eyes fixed in terror on the old wood. The Whispering One was there, testing her resistance. She knew not to respond. Any word would be an invitation. The whispering voice continued, slow and persistent, recounting stories of Oakhaven's ancient residents, buried secrets in dark pacts. It spoke of her father, Thomas, with an intimacy that violently churned Sarah's stomach, describing his fears and offerings. The creature reveled in her torment, each word an insidious, poisoned arrow. She covered her ears, but the whispers came from within her own mind, an inescapable invasion. She felt a crushing pressure in her head, as if something was trying to distort her reality. The Whispering One's power lay in shattering sanity. Paranoia set in, making her doubt everything. The cabin's shadows seemed to move, walls to distort. The stench became unbearable. She remembered her father's note in an old Bible. Custis Silvae, Lumen Curum, guardian of the forest, pure light. A spark of hope ignited. She found the note, full of strange drawings. The fireplace. Fire was pure light, an element to repel darkness. She rushed back, feeding the flames, transforming the fireplace into a roaring bonfire that flooded the room with warmth and light. The whispers diminished, the pressure on her head eased. The darkness receded, the stench gone. The Whispering One outside moaned, a lament of pain. She continued, drawing a circle on the floor around the fireplace, arranging twigs into miniature fires, lighting them with embers. The cabin glowed golden. The Whispering One screamed outside, writhing from the light. She took a pouch of dried herbs from Abigail's diary, throwing them into the flames. Aromatic smoke filled the air, a scent of protection. Finally, she held her father's tooth necklace over the fire. An intense golden light emanated from it, pulsating with energy. The Whispering One screamed, an agonizing sound that made the windows vibrate. The small fires flared, the circle of light expanding, protecting her completely. The floor vibrated, the forest agitated. The entity was being repelled. The ritual worked. Sarah felt exhaustion, but also triumph. She had confronted the Whispering One and was winning. She didn't know how long it would last, but it was her chance to escape. She waited until the lament diminished to a faint whisper, then rose, body aching, mind clear. The creature was still out there, but now she had a weapon. With the necklace and poker, Sarah unbarricaded the door, light from the flames illuminating the porch, a golden shield. The herb scent burned the Whispering One's senses. She opened the door. The fog was dense, but the light pierced it, revealing the forest contours. The Watcher was gone. Silence, forest, dampness, but the feeling of something lurking remained palpable. Sarah stepped out, necklace held high. Its light intensified, forming a protective halo. She walked to her car, steps firm. The forest seemed to retreat, shadows shrinking, whispers distant. The Whispering One had been repelled. But she wasn't free. The pact, the offerings, the vigilance, it wouldn't give up easily. She reached the car, opened the door and got in, her heart pounding with relief and triumph. She started the engine. As she shifted into gear, a slender, disfigured form materialized at the tree line, the essence of the Whispering One. It moved towards the car, body contorting. Sarah felt dread, but pointed the necklace. The creature stopped, shrieked in pain and frustration, and recoiled, vanishing into the forest. Sarah floored the accelerator, leaving Oak Haven behind. She drove for hours until the sun rose and she saw civilization. At a gas station, her body ached, her mind exhausted, but she was safe. The necklace was a trophy, proof of her victory. She had broken the pact, liberated herself, but the experience had marked her. She would never see the forest the same way. She began writing her story, documenting every detail, exercising her fear. Over years, Sarah became a paranormal researcher, warning others. She never returned to Oak Haven, but its terror accompanied her. The necklace in a silver locket was a constant reminder, an amulet, a source of strength. She had become a guardian, but a part of her never recovered. The Whispering One's whispers, though distant, echoed in her mind, visiting her darkest dreams. She awoke screaming, convinced of its presence. The trauma was an indelible scar, transforming her, opening her eyes to a darker, ancient reality. She had won a battle, but the war against forest entities would never end. Whispers would always persist, and Oak Haven's legacy would haunt her, an eternal echo of the terror she faced and survived. The ancient wood groaned under an unseen weight, its protests echoing through the dense silence of the night. Michael recoiled, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. A cold wave of panic constricted his throat, his mind struggling to process the scene unfolding before him. The living room window, previously a dark, opaque mirror, now revealed a distorted, almost human shape pressed against the glass. It had no discernible face, only an indistinct mass that seemed to absorb the ambient light, an impossibly elongated silhouette that twisted and writhed. The faint rasp of fingernails scraping slowly against the wooden frame was deafening, each scratch a sharp puncture in the cabin's oppressive quiet. Michael attempted to scream, but no sound escaped, trapped in his parched throat. His eyes, wide with terror, fixated on the form outside. It was not an animal. It was not a man. It was something else, a thing belonging purely to the shadows, a presence that should not exist so close to the flickering light of the fireplace. The shape extended a long, twisted appendage, tapping gently on the glass. A silent, horrifying invitation. The world outside seemed to have swallowed all hope, leaving Michael utterly helpless, at the mercy of this inexplicable entity. He knew with a chilling certainty that enveloped him that whatever was out there desired entry, and its intentions were far from benign. The cabin at Blackwood Creek, nestled deep within the coastal forest near Astoria, Oregon, had initially seemed like a perfect sanctuary for Michael. He found the rustic dwelling through an unassuming online advertisement, captivated by images of a cozy interior and panoramic windows promising views of untamed wilderness. The promise of crisp, salty air and pristine hiking trails had sealed his decision. Upon arrival, the location surpassed his expectations. A small, secluded clearing cradled the cabin, encircled by towering pines and ancient trees whose skeletal branches seemed to guard the sky. Blackwood Creek, a stream of dark, murmuring waters, snaked just a few yards from the property, its name subtly hinting at the forest's mysterious aura. The initial days unfolded in a blissful haze, filled with long walks and quiet evenings by the fireplace. Yet, as his first week concluded, a subtle disquiet began to seep into his idyllic retreat. Minor incidents, easily rationalized as chance occurrences, started to accumulate. Objects he was certain he had placed neatly would inexplicably shift, appearing slightly out of position. Faint scratching sounds from the roof, initially attributed to industrious squirrels, now carried an unsettling cadence, almost deliberate in their rhythm. More unsettling still was the fleeting sensation of movement at the edge of his vision, a phantom presence glimpsed only when he was entirely alone. Michael, a pragmatist by nature, initially dismissed these unsettling occurrences, reasoning that prolonged solitude could easily conjure such illusions. But the forest itself, as the golden light of day began to recede, seemed to transform, acquiring a deeper, more foreboding hue. Shadows, once playful dancers of light, now writhed and stretched in ways that seemed too deliberate, too knowing. The dense canopy of trees appeared to gaze down with countless unseen eyes, an omnipresent watchfulness that seemed to penetrate the cabin's sturdy windows. The fireplace, once a source of comfort, now cast dancing shadows that at times appeared to take on specific, almost menacing forms. He found himself glancing over his shoulder with increasing frequency, the night's silence suddenly charged with an invisible tension that made his skin crawl. A faint breeze entering through a barely perceptible crack sounded distinctly like a whisper. The coastal forest began to feel less like a welcoming wilderness and more like a vigilant, predatory entity. The sensation of being observed became a constant, unwelcomed companion, a silent presence lurking relentlessly at the very periphery of his consciousness. The once wild beauty of nature morphed into something oppressive. The sheer vastness of the forest became a constant, stark reminder of his profound and growing isolation. Michael began locking all doors and windows with a meticulous, almost ritualistic care each evening, a habit he had previously considered utterly unnecessary. The encroaching darkness that enveloped the cabin transformed into a heavy, menacing cloak, seemingly alive with indistinct sounds and imperceptible movements that relentlessly tormented his increasingly fragile mind. The creek, Blackwood Creek, now began to sound like a distant, insidious voice, a continuous, unsettling murmur of ancient, unspeakable secrets. He often caught himself listening intently, straining to decipher what the ominous forest was attempting to communicate to him. The night's profound quiet was no longer a comforting reprieve, but instead a chilling prelude to an unknown horror. The very wood of the cabin seemed to groan louder. The wind howled through the eaves with an increased ferocity, and Michael felt himself teetering perilously on the precipice of full-blown paranoia. Each lengthening shadow, each unexpected sound confirmed the undeniable proximity of something watching him closely, patiently waiting. One evening, as Michael attempted to read by the flickering light, a soft, distinct sound made him raise his head. It was a gentle scratching from the roof, something light yet persistently rhythmic that seemed to move with a deliberate cadence. He extinguished his lantern and stepped onto the porch, peering upwards into the overwhelming darkness, but saw nothing. Yet the profound sensation that something was undeniably there, observing him from above, was an irrefutable certainty. He retreated indoors, securing the door, and the night proved long and profoundly restless. Michael woke up countless times, convinced he had heard something, an elusive noise he couldn't quite identify. He found himself constantly watching the windows, half expecting to see a defined shape emerge, but the forest remained a formless blur. With each sound, his paranoia intensified, transforming the cabin into a suffocating cage of anxiety. The vivid image of that disfigured specter at the window the previous night, though he tried to dismiss it as a hallucination, stubbornly refused to vanish. He had convinced himself it was a hallucination, but the memory of that eerie tap on the glass felt so undeniably real that it compelled him to question his own sanity. This escalating fear culminated one terrifying moment when the window revealed a distorted, almost human shape pressed against the glass, an impossibly elongated silhouette. The air within the cabin grew dense and suffocating, thick with the invisible presence Michael now knew with chilling certainty was haunting him. He had tried to rationalize the dislodged pillow in the bedroom as an animal, but the deliberate nature of its displacement defied any logical explanation. As night descended once more, a thick, pervasive fog rolled in, enveloping the cabin in a damp, ghostly shroud, deepening his sense of isolation. He meticulously locked every door and window, rechecking each latch multiple times, a desperate attempt to fortify his fragile sanctuary. The fireplace crackled, its meager warmth offering a false comfort against the profound cold that had seeped into his bones. He sat in the living room, the iron poker clutched tightly beside him, his gaze fixed relentlessly on the front door. Every creak of the aging wood, every soft sigh of the wind caused him to startle violently. Hours stretched into an unbearable eternity. Sleep remained an impossible luxury for Michael, his mind trapped in a frantic whirlwind of anxious thoughts. Suddenly, a distinct sound pierced the oppressive quiet. 3 soft, measured knocks resonated from the front door. Michael froze instantly, his heart hammering wildly. The knocks were slow, cadenced, an unnerving rhythm that seemed to calculate each chilling pause. This was not a plea for help. It was a commanding rap asserting a menacing presence. Another set of 3 knocks followed, slightly louder, yet Michael offered no response, paralyzed by unnamed dread. He could feel an inexplicable cold emanating from the door, seeping through the aged wood. The malevolent presence on the other side was palpable, an oppressive aura of ancient malice. A horrifying scratching sound began to ascend the door, as if long, sharp claws were being slowly dragged across the timber, a perverse invitation to an unspoken horror. Michael squeezed his eyes shut, desperately wishing for this to be a nightmare, but the sound persisted, chillingly real. A faint, earthy odor of damp soil mixed with something distinctly metallic and sickly sweet began to seep into the cabin from beneath the door, a corrupted funereal scent. After what felt like an excruciating eternity, the scratching ceased. A heavy, oppressive silence descended upon the cabin, far more terrifying than any noise. Michael then heard slow, deliberate footsteps circling the entire perimeter of the cabin, methodically inspecting each window, each wall, searching for a weakness. He could almost physically feel the presence, its slender, disfigured form gliding silently between the trees, its invisible, burning gaze penetrating the cabin's walls. He heard a faint, unsettling sound near the kitchen window, as if something had softly pressed against the glass, followed by a gentle, almost human sigh. A chilling, all-consuming panic seized Michael. He knew he could not simply remain there, passively waiting to be hunted. He had to act, to do something, anything. The thought of running for his car flashed through his mind, but the horrifying image of the form he knew was waiting outside made him instantly recoil. He was utterly trapped. The night, he knew, was still young, and the true terror has yet to fully unfold. The presence outside had not relinquished its claim. It was merely toying with him, savoring his escalating fear. His terror intensified, fueled by the conviction that the creature was actively trying to force its way inside. A sharp, distinct crack from the back of the cabin, the unmistakable sound of timber splintering, confirmed his fears. He moved cautiously down the hallway, adrenaline surging through his veins. The rear window was slightly ajar, its wooden frame visibly splintered, the latch ripped away. A chilling draft swept into the room, carrying the scent of the forest. He knew with absolute certainty that the creature was no longer outside, it was inside the cabin. He spun and sprinted back towards the living room, desperately scanning for an escape route. His car. He snatched his keys and cell phone, but there was no signal. Despair overwhelmed him. He ran towards the front door, fumbled with the lock, and yanked it open. The biting cold night air hit him, offering a fleeting moment of hope. But in that same instant, a grotesque shape materialized in the darkness to his right, emerging silently from the ancient trees. It was tall, impossibly slender, moving with unnatural grace, the same form he had glimpsed at the window, now in tangible flesh. It had no discernible face, just a mass of profound darkness with two glowing red points for eyes, reflecting the meager light from the cabin. It made no sound, yet Michael felt a distinct hum, a crushing pressure in his head, as if it were communicating directly into his mind. The creature took a slow, deliberate step towards him, the surrounding darkness seeming to bend around its form. The air immediately became frigid, and Michael felt a deep, primal shiver of revulsion. He could smell the damp earth and the sickly sweet scent of decay. The shape raised one of its appendages, a hand made of gnarled branches, and extended it towards Michael. There was no aggression, only a deeply disturbing, almost curious intent. The very tips of its fingers drew nearer, and Michael felt the air vibrate, the faint sound of distant whispers filling his ears. He knew with absolute certainty that if that hand touched him, it would be the end. His soul would be consumed, his mind irrevocably shattered, and fell. As he bent to pick them up, he heard a low, rasping sound from beneath the car. He froze, then slowly stood, eyes fixed on the dark space. A pair of glowing, ember-red eyes blinked in the darkness. Michael took a step back, poker raised. A slender, low-lying form slid out from beneath the car, a disfigured creature of bark and damp earth, its red eyes fixed on him. Its mouth opened, revealing small, sharp teeth, and it emitted a low, guttural hiss that echoed in his head. "You are mine." Horror overwhelmed Michael. This was not an intruder. It was an ancient, malevolent entity. The form at the window was just a manifestation of this true terror. He spun and ran for the dirt road, leaving the poker behind. He didn't look back, but felt the burning red eyes, the hiss echoing in his ears. The forest conspired against him, branches grasping, roots tripping. He ran until his lungs burned, falling to the ground, exhausted. He finally glimpsed a faint light on the horizon, a highway. Hope surged, giving him new energy. He sprinted towards the light. As he neared, the forest sounds diminished, replaced by the distant hum of cars. The fog dissipated, revealing streetlights. He collapsed on the grass, immense relief washing over him. He looked back at the dirt road. The creature was gone. He breathed deeply, trying to calm his heart. He had escaped, but the experience had scarred him. The flames rise, providing a momentary relief of light. He swept the room again. One shadow, Michael, driven by a primal instinct for self-preservation, found a desperate strength he never knew he possessed. With a choked cry, he hurled himself backward, tumbling onto the cabin's threshold, escaping the creature's reach. The entity, momentarily taken aback, hesitated. That fleeting moment was all Michael needed. He scrambled to his feet, slamming the heavy door shut with a resounding crash and furiously locking it. He pressed his back against the door, trembling, knowing the flimsy lock would not hold. He desperately needed a plan, and fast. His eyes frantically scanned the room for a weapon or barricade. He lunged at an old, sturdy oak dresser, dragging it with immense difficulty towards the door. The grating sound of wood echoed, yet the creature seemed to be waiting, savoring the hunt. The dresser was finally wedged against the door, a temporary layer of protection. Michael then seized the fireplace poker once more, its cold, heavy metal a feeble comfort. He spun around, his eyes sweeping the cabin, searching for another point of attack. The creature was inside. He had seen it. The cabin's silence was thick, the darkness seeming to writhe, full of illusionary forms. A sharp crack from the bedroom made him whirl. The room was empty, but the forced window was now wide open, curtains fluttering. A distraction. The creature was toying with him. Michael felt a surge of rage. He wouldn't be an easy victim. He returned to the living room, now more focused. He looked at the fireplace, its fire dying. He thrust a piece of firewood onto the embers, watching in the darkest corner, near the back door, appeared denser, more solid. Michael raised the poker, pointing at it. "I know you're there," he whispered, his voice firm. The shadow didn't move. He approached slowly, eyes fixed on the dark mass. The closer he drew, the more terrifyingly real it became. It had no face, but he felt its unseen gaze. When he was feet away, the shadow dissolved into the floor like smoke, sliding beneath the back door, leaving a trail of intense cold. Michael rushed to the door, panic returning. He had to flee. He unbarricaded the front door, pushing the dresser aside, and opened it cautiously. The thick fog still obscured the clearing. He saw nothing, only the oppressive silence and the damp smell of earth. With the poker firmly gripped, Michael stepped out, moving towards his car. Each step, a gamble. He reached the car, his hands trembling as he fumbled for the keys, which slipped deeply. He knew he would never see the forest the same way. He got up and walked along the highway, waiting for a ride. He would never return to Blackwood Creek. The cabin, once a refuge, was now a dark reminder of terror. The creature had left its indelible mark on his soul. He had escaped, but the pursuit, he knew, would never truly end. The echo of that hiss and the disfigured specter would haunt him forever, a silent invitation to the abyss of the Oregon coastal forest. He knew that night had changed everything, revealing that true evil was real, not just fiction. The kerosene lamp, suspended precariously from the dark, rough-hewn ceiling of the cabin's main room, flickered weakly, casting erratic, dancing shadows across the rustic wooden walls. Andrew, his body rigidly tense and his face slick with cold sweat, aimed a heavy, rusted hunting shotgun at the darkest corner of the room. He knew it was there. There was no noise, no movement, only an anomalous coldness that seemed to emanate from that area, sucking the warmth from the air. His eyes, wide with terror, strained to penetrate the darkness, but it appeared dense, impenetrable, like a veil. Suddenly, the kerosene lamp flickered and died, plunging the cabin into absolute darkness. Andrew screamed, a raw, desperate sound lost in the vastness of the night. He was no longer alone, and whatever was with him in the dark was not human. He could feel its presence, so close he could almost touch it, a glacial breath on his nape. The sensation of being watched, once a vague intuition, was now a terrifying reality. The cabin of Shadowbrook, nestled deep within the Appalachian Mountains near Asheville, North Carolina, was a modern retreat, a stark contrast to the untamed wilderness that surrounded it. Andrew, a writer seeking inspiration, had rented the place for a month of solitude and creative immersion. Online photos depicted a structure of glass and wood, offering panoramic views of the forest, a seemingly perfect sanctuary for his work. Upon arrival, the location lived up to his imagination. A winding gravel road led to the cabin, hidden within a lush clearing. The crisp mountain air, the cheerful bird song, and the profound silence of nature were a soothing balm to his city-weary soul. Andrew spent his initial days acclimatizing, savoring the peace and beauty of his new environment. He dedicated his days to writing, exploring the numerous forest trails, and watching the breathtaking sunsets from his deck. However, just a week into his stay, a series of small, unsettling incidents began to disrupt his tranquility. Objects inexplicably moved in his absence, doors seemed to open and close on their own, and the persistent sensation of not being alone became a constant, unwelcome companion. Andrew, a natural skeptic, initially attempted to rationalize everything. He attributed the occurrences to the wind, the natural settling of the house, or simply his own mind playing tricks on him due to the profound isolation. Yet, the sensation grew stronger, more insistent, and undeniably unnerving. He often found himself staring intently at the windows at night, utterly convinced he had glimpsed a fleeting shadow in the darkness, a shape darker than the night itself. He would quickly dismiss these sightings as mere fatigue, a product of overwork. One particularly unsettling evening, as he sat engrossed in a book in the living room, he distinctly heard a sound emanating from the kitchen. It was a soft, dragging noise, as if something heavy were being slowly pulled across the floor. He rose instantly, adrenaline coursing through his veins, and cautiously made his way to the kitchen. The light was off. He flicked it on, his eyes darting across the room. There was nothing visibly out of place, no chair askew, no utensil fallen, but on the countertop, a glass he had left upright was now inverted, and on the dusty surface, there was a clear, faint trail, as if something delicate had been dragged across it. Andrew knew with absolute certainty that he had left the glass standing upright. His heart began to pound violently against his ribs. It was not the wind. It was not an animal. Someone, or something, was undeniably in the cabin with him. He began to meticulously inspect all the windows and doors, desperately searching for any signs of forced entry. There was nothing. All the locks were intact, all the windows securely fastened, yet the sensation of being observed intensified dramatically, making the very air heavy and oppressive. He could almost physically feel unseen eyes upon him, burning into his skin, penetrating deep into his thoughts. The cabin of Shadowbrook, which he had envisioned as a sanctuary, had transformed into a terrifying prison. The profound darkness of the surrounding forest, once a picturesque backdrop, now loomed as a predatory monster, its insidious shadows stretching inwards, actively claiming the house as its own. He knew he was not alone, and whatever was with him in the dark, whatever was relentlessly watching him, harbored no benign intentions. Andrew spent the night wide awake, sleep a forbidden luxury. The cabin, once a refuge, was now a scene of psychological terror. He moved silently, inspecting every corner, every door, every window, searching for a sign of the invasive presence. At every shadow, he started. At every creak, his heart raced. He tried to rationalize, but the evidence of the inverted glass and the trail were undeniable. It was real. The next day, he improvised barricades with chairs, tables, and heavy objects, transforming the cabin into a makeshift fortress. But even with barricades, the sensation of being observed never disappeared. It persisted, a constant chill on his nape, an invisible weight on his shoulders. He felt he was protecting himself not from a thief, but from something more, something that can move through walls, materialize from shadows. That night, the tension was palpable. He sat in the living room, body tense, listening to the oppressive silence of the mountain. He felt the cold invade the cabin from within. Suddenly, a soft click, like a switch, came from the bedroom. Andrew froze. He had left all lights off in the bedroom. He slowly rose, grabbing an old fireplace poker. The bedroom door was slightly ajar, and from within, a faint reddish light pulsed. He pushed the door open with his foot. The room was dark, save for a flickering light from the closet. He approached cautiously. Inside, a small, lit candle sat on a pile of clothes. Its flame was greenish, emitting a sickly glow, and around it, drawn with what appeared to be dried blood, were strange, ancient glyphs. Andrew felt an icy shiver. This was not human work. It was supernatural. The smell from the closet was metallic, coppery, and sweet, a putrid odor that made his stomach churn. He recoiled, trembling. The greenish candle burned, its flame pulsing with a life of its own, and the blood symbols seemed to writher. He knew the entity was manifesting, revealing its true nature. That ritual, the candle, the symbols, it was a warning, a dark invitation to the abyss. He was trapped in the mountains, at the mercy of this malign presence. The air in the Shadowbrook cabin became frigid and oppressive, laden with the malevolent presence Andrew now knew haunted him. The greenish candle in the bedroom closet burned with a sickly light, illuminating the dried blood symbols that pulsed on the wood. He slowly retreated from the bedroom, the fireplace poker gripped tightly, his eyes sweeping the darkness of the house. In every shadow, he saw disfigured forms, ghostly faces contorting on the walls. His mind whirled, struggling to process what he had witnessed. This was no thief, no animal. This was something from a world of darkness and terror he never believed existed. He returned to the living room, trying to calm his gasping breath. The smell of copper and putrefaction from the bedroom permeated the cabin, mixing with mold and dampness from the forest, creating an oppressive, nauseating atmosphere. He sat on the sofa, eyes fixed on the bedroom door, waiting for any sign. The cabin's silence was dense, punctuated only by the rustling leaves outside and the uncontrolled beating of his own heart. He knew he couldn't stay, waiting to be hunted. He had to do something, anything to escape. His cell phone had no signal. He was completely isolated. Paranoia set in, making him doubt his sanity. But the symbols, the candle, the nauseating smell, too vivid for an illusion. He remembered a local legend from Asheville, the Observer, an ancient mountain spirit feeding on fear and loneliness, manifesting through shadows, whispers, and subtle signs, driving victims to terror. The observer delighted in watching fear, savoring despair. Shadow Brook, with its panoramic windows, was its perfect hunting ground. Andrew realized that the entity didn't want to physically harm him. It wanted him to suffer, to break mentally, to be consumed by fear, a pawn in its cruel game. Suddenly, a soft click from the living room. An old vinyl record player, unplugged, was spinning. A distorted, melancholy melody, ancient and unearthly, filled the room. No record was on it, just the phantom music. Andrew dropped the poker, hands covering his ears. The music was torture, penetrating his mind, distorting reality. He felt the observer moving around him, toying with him, savoring his terror. He couldn't bear it. He had to break the spell, escape the mental torture. He rose, stumbling, muscles stiff. He walked towards the record player, the music intensifying with each step, a chorus of whispers and laments. He felt cold emanating from the device. He reached out, trembling, and switched it off. The music stopped abruptly, the silence more deafening than the sound. Andrew breathed deeply, trying to calm his heart, but relief was brief. A new sound filled the cabin, a hiss from all directions at once, a collective whisper like thousands of crawling insects rustling dry leaves, breaking bones. It was the observer's voice, manifesting purely a direct assault on his mind, driving him mad. He fell to his knees, hands over his ears, but the sound was inescapable. He felt the cabin walls vibrate, the structure yielding. He closed his eyes, wanting it to end. But the observer wouldn't stop. It wanted him broken, consumed by fear, a toy, a puppet. He felt a frigid ethereal touch on his shoulder and screamed, a desperate cry lost in the cacophony. He opened his eyes. A slender shadow, denser than darkness, stood before him, faceless, twisting like smoke. Red eyes glowed, fixed on him. The shadow extended a branch-like arm, touching his face. The cold was excruciating, piercing his head. He screamed again, a cry of pure terror. He tried to fight, but his body was paralyzed, his mind a whirlpool of dread. He was at the observer's mercy, a prisoner in his own mind, his own cabin. The icy touch of the shadow on Andrew's skin was the final catalyst. An electric shock coursed through his body, and, driven by a primal instinct for survival, he found a desperate strength. With a roar, he shoved the shadow away. The creature, surprised, recoiled for a split second, its slender silhouette seeming to writhe in frustration. That brief moment was all Andrew needed. He scrambled to his feet, muscles rigid and trembling, and ran. He didn't know where, only that he had to escape that thing, that cursed cabin. The deafening hiss still echoed in his mind, but now he could hear his own footsteps, his ragged breathing, proof he was still alive, still fighting. He ran to the front door, stumbling over the barricades, caring nothing for stealth. He tore the door open and burst into the dark night. The cold, damp mountain air hit him, a shock to his lungs. He ran across the clearing towards the forest, hoping to hide among the trees. But the forest was no refuge. It was the observer's domain. He felt its presence, lurking, moving with him, watching him. Red eyes, he knew, followed his every step. He ran faster, bare feet pounding on the damp, leaf-covered ground. Tree branches seemed to grab his clothes. Roots tripped his feet as if the forest itself tried to deliver him to the observer. He didn't look back, but felt the creature's icy breath on his nape, an ethereal touch that made him want to scream. He ran until his lungs burned and his legs trembled, until he couldn't take another step. He fell, exhausted, gasping, body shaking. He closed his eyes, expecting the end. But it didn't come. Instead, the hiss diminished, the pressure in his mind eased. He opened his eyes. He was in a small, moonlit clearing, a break in the dense forest. The shadow wasn't there. He couldn't see or feel it. But the sense of being watched persisted, a faint echo of the observer. He realized the creature hadn't given up. It was waiting, toying with him, letting him believe he'd escaped, only to attack again. Andrew knew he had to keep moving. He rose, muscles aching, and walked aimlessly just to get away from the cabin, that cursed place. He walked for hours, moonlight guiding him through the dense forest. At every shadow, every sound, he turned, expecting to see the observer's red eyes. But the creature didn't appear. It was merely observing, savoring his fear, letting him suffer in his paranoia. Dawn broke, a pale, cold light penetrating the forest's darkness. Andrew felt immense relief, but also renewed fear. He knew the observer was a creature of the night, driven away by daylight. But what would happen when night returned? His escape from the cabin was just the beginning of his terror. He was free for now, but the creature would follow him, haunt him wherever he went. He was a victim, a pawn in its cruel game. Andrew walked through the forest all day, the sun filtering through the leaves, casting an unreal glow on the forest floor. He was exhausted, hungry, and thirsty, but the fear of stopping was greater than any physical need. He felt that if he stopped, the observer would catch him. He finally found a narrow, overgrown trail leading out of the forest. He followed it, his muscles aching, feet bleeding, but the hope of civilization propelled him. Hours later, he emerged at a gravel road, seeing the roofs of a small town in the distance, Asheville. A wave of relief washed over him, and he ran, using his last reserves of energy. He reached the town, the sounds of cars and people filling the air. He sat on a bench, scanning the normal, unsuspecting people. He wanted to scream, to warn them, but knew no one would believe him. He looked like a madman. He called the police, trying to explain, but their disbelief was palpable. They promised to investigate the cabin, but Andrew knew they'd find nothing. The observer was a creature of darkness, leaving no physical traces. He was taken to a hospital for his injuries and psychological evaluation. He recounted his story, but doctors looked at him with pity, attributing his experiences to trauma and sleep deprivation. He was diagnosed with stress-induced psychosis and given medication. He tried to fight the diagnosis, but their words were an impenetrable wall. No one believed him. He was alone in his terror. He recovered physically, but the experience had marked him deeply. He couldn't sleep without nightmares. The observer's red eyes haunting him. Its whispers echoed a sinister lullaby denying him peace. He knew it hadn't given up. He could feel its presence, lurking in his mind, watching him from afar. He'd escaped the cabin, but not the entity. He was a victim, a pawn in its cruel game. He tried to resume writing, but words wouldn't come. His mind was filled with sick images, distorted sounds, the putrid smell of the forest. Inspiration became torment. Andrew knew the observer would follow him forever, an invisible shadow haunting him. He was a prisoner of his own mind. Shadowbrook, the Appalachians, the dark forest, all constant reminders that evil was real, not just fiction. Andrew tried to rebuild his life, but the observer's ghost accompanied him every step. He moved to a bustling city, seeking refuge in its noise and crowds, avoiding isolated places, forests, darkness. But the observer didn't need a physical place. It existed in his mind, his dreams, his paranoia. Nightmares were constant, vivid. He awoke screaming, drenched in cold sweat. The observer's red eyes seared into his mind. Its whispers echoed a sinister lullaby, preventing him peace. He sought professional help, psychologists, therapists, trying every approach to escape the torment. They diagnosed him with PTSD, psychosis, schizophrenia. He tried to believe them, to convince himself it was an illusion, but the memory of the inverted glass, the greenish candle, the blood symbols, the unplugged record player playing, too real. He knew he wasn't mad. He knew the observer was real and always there, lurking in the shadows of his mind, watching him. He began to research, reading local legends, Appalachian folklore, stories of dark entities and forest spirits. He found countless accounts of similar phenomena, the feeling of being watched, objects moving, whispering voices. He felt less alone, but more terrified. He realized the observer wasn't isolated. It was part of a hidden world, a realm of darkness existing at the edges of reality. He dedicated himself to documenting these stories, giving voice to victims, warning others. He became an occult scholar, a defender of those touched by invisible terror. But the price was constant vigilance. He lived with one foot in the real world, one in the abyss, always alert, always waiting for the observer's next sign. He never felt completely safe, even in his own home. In every shadow, he saw a form. In every sound, he heard a whisper. In every moment of solitude, he felt the observer's presence, its red eyes fixed on him, watching him. He had escaped Shadow Brook, but not the observer. The creature had rooted itself in his mind, his soul, transforming him into an echo of its own terror. He had become an observer himself, condemned to witness the darkness lurking in the world's corners. His life was an eternal vigil, a constant battle against fear and paranoia. He had survived, but victory came with the price: the loss of his peace, his sanity, his old life. He was free from the observer, but the observer was free to roam his mind, a constant reminder that darkness was real and would always find a way to manifest. And he, Andrew, would always be there, watching, waiting, a prisoner of his own trauma.
Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more terrifying stories.